Hi there, it's Kute here, sending you much love wherever you are around the world watching this right now. In today's short video blog, I'm going to talk a little bit about and give you some keys in terms of how do you deal with people in your life that don't want to change, especially those that you love. Because it's those that you love that you're most attached to. It's those that you love that you most care for, especially too if perhaps you're living with them. Maybe they're your spouse, especially if they're your, let's say, your kids, your siblings, those you're maybe somewhat responsible for. But it could be a co-worker, it could be a boss, it could be anyone. How do you deal with people in your life that you can see what they're doing clearly isn't working? You know those folks? You can clearly see that they are about to drop off a cliff. You can clearly see that if they keep going, they're going to be in big trouble. You can clearly see what they're doing isn't working, but they can't. And you try and talk to them about it. You try and guide them. You try and help them. You try and support them. And either they're not interested, they're totally resistant, they're upset at you, they fight you, they're frustrated, maybe they're disrespectful, or they don't care, or they're just completely unconscious and they don't get it, and they're not open and receptive to hearing what you say. What can be even more frustrating, do you get what I'm saying? And what can be even more frustrating is when the consequences of their actions doesn't just affect them, it affects you emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and sometimes financially. When you're in a situation like that, you might want to rip your hair out with frustration. You know, in a situation like that, it's easy to sometimes feel so out of control. Especially when your intentions are good and maybe you have the experience and they're not open. So what do you do to stay sane when you're dealing with someone who isn't open? What do you do? I have a few simple keys for you in terms of how do you deal with someone you love that doesn't want to change. If you want to stay sane, first and foremost, you have to shift your relationship with the experience itself. Here are a few simple keys. Realize this: people don't change. No one changes. We don't change unless we want to change. So you have to recognize that, my friends, you don't have the power to ultimately change anyone. You might change them for a moment. You might manipulate them into thinking a different way or shifting for a moment. But if someone doesn't want to change themselves and they have the motivation and a deeper why within themselves to change, they won't change. As a transformational coach, I've had the opportunity to coach everyone from celebrities, billionaires, athletes, mothers, kids, you name it, salespeople, peak performers, regular folks from all walks of life in over 30 countries. People don't change unless they want to change. And so you have to give up the sense of control that you can change someone. And if your happiness is dependent on someone else changing, likely you're going to be miserable. And in doing that, you have given them a tremendous amount of your power. So what do? What does that mean? Does that mean you just stay frustrated and take it? No. Here's a couple of other things. You have to first accept where they're at. And by accepting where they're at doesn't mean you stay in the situation. By accepting where they're at still means that you have a choice. Once you've accepted, rather than fighting their reality. See, you can't change, you can't affect change in someone's life until you first accept where someone is at. When you accept where someone is at, then you are now in relationship with where they're at. Many times we see what someone is doing and they're doing it in a way that we don't agree with, right? Or they're living their life in a way that we don't like. So in a certain sense, we're resisting where they're at. We're fighting where they're at. And many times when we go to try and impact someone out of good intention, we come at that person as though I know the way and you don't see the way, or I have a better way than you have. And in a sense, we're resisting them. In a sense, we're making that person wrong. What's important first is that you understand where someone is at. You come from a place of understanding where they're at, aligning with where they're at by accepting the situation, accepting them exactly as they are. This way, your happiness isn't tied to them changing. And when you can accept what is, when you can accept where this person is, then you stand the possibility for them to feel understood by you. And when someone feels understood by you and listened to by you, they are much more likely to listen to you. That doesn't mean they're going to change, but this is another step. So to really accept where they're at, and by accepting where they're at also means to honor this person's unique soul's journey. Every single human being on the planet has a unique soul journey. Every single human being on the planet has different lessons to learn based on their, you could say, their soul's evolution. What your lesson might be in this lifetime might be very well different from my lesson, will be very well different from your kids' lessons. Every single human being is in the process of their life. We are here to learn certain lessons. So it's important that you don't impose your reality, or you don't impose how you think that person's life should look like or be like based on your lens, your conditioning, your history, your wants, needs, and desires, and you honor, whether it's your son, whether it's your daughter, whether it's your spouse, whether it's your parents, whoever it is, you honor that person's unique soul lessons. And you don't just see that person as an ego, as a human being, but you also see that person as a soul incarnated into this human experience so that they can grow, learn, and evolve. And how they grow, learn, and evolve are through certain experiences. So if we take that a little further, that person that you love, even though you don't want them to hurt, you don't want them to feel pain, you don't want them to go down that path that you clearly see is not going to work, but they can't see it because because they're so in it right now, and you're not in it, so you have some perspective. Sometimes people have to go through certain experiences. And if how we learn about who we are and about who we're not is through relationships, successes, failures, and experiences, sometimes those you love will have to go through certain experiences, a classroom, a curriculum, because that's the only way that they can learn, grow, and evolve. And as a result, by facing the consequences of their actions, that will be a part of the lesson that helps them grow, evolve, and mature. So you can't always protect those you love from the lessons that they need to learn. So honor. So see through the eyes of the soul and honor those you love. Honor their soul's curriculum, the lessons that they have to learn in this lifetime. The other thing as a part of acceptance is that you don't just get caught up in someone's potential. Sometimes it can be so easy to see the potential of your kid, to see the potential of your spouse, to see the potential of that person that you love, and you can see their potential, that you don't accept where they're at. And it will be frustrating because you approach them from a standpoint of, I so see what you could be. Why are you doing this? I so see I see your potential. Why are you behaving this way? Ultimately, we do the best that we can do based on where we are currently in our lives, based on our current level of resourcefulness, our own emotional capacity, state, and development. And so if that person you love is being a certain way, likely this is where they're at. And what will often frustrate you and create resistance and fights and upset and resentment sometimes is we often don't accept where they're at. We sometimes get caught up by being in relationship with their potential, projecting their potential onto them, which can sometimes keep you stuck in situations with those you love a lot longer than is needed. By accepting where someone is at, puts you in direct relationship with what is. And when you're in relationship with what is, it's only then that you can then decide what you're going to do and how you are going to then relate to that person in a way that honors you and them. You know, because you accept that person where they're at, rather than projecting their potential onto them. And sometimes when you project their potential onto them, it can perpetuate your relationship. It can perpetuate a certain dynamic because you're always thinking they might change. You're always giving them the benefit of the doubt. And many times I've seen so many of my clients, so many folks stay in relationships much longer than they should have. I've seen so many people not set their boundaries, not speak up, not honor themselves because they weren't in relationship with the reality of where someone was at. Be in relationship with the reality, not just their potential. And lastly, sometimes people aren't ready to change right now. Just because they're not ready to change in this moment doesn't mean they won't change. So you do have to accept where they are. It might mean shifting your relationship with that friend, that loved one, your kid, your spouse. It might mean letting them go. It might mean you don't see them. I'm often fond of saying I have a perfect relationship with every single person in my life. There are some people I just choose not to be around. Simply not out of resentment, not out of upset, just simply because I know where they're at. I've accepted where they're at. Where they're at doesn't quite work with me. It's not an emotional, vibrational, spiritual match, but I love them from afar. And sometimes we don't want to accept where people are at because we're afraid if we truly accept where they're at, it will mean we're no longer in relationship, or we don't have the relationship with them, maybe the relationship with our siblings, the relationship with our parent that we are attached to having, that we think we should be having with them based on the fact that they're our parents or they're our family. You know, this is the kind of relationship I should have with my family. So one thing to let go of is the relationship, the expectation of the relationship that you think you should have with that person. Let that go completely, and then you can allow for the authentic nature of what your relationship with that person actually is. It may be more than what you expected or wanted. It might be completely different, but you will find out the authentic form of your relationship with that person. So if you're in a relationship with someone who doesn't want to change, show up and just love them. Don't just see them as an ego, as a person, as a personality, because the personality is flawed. All of our personality, we have stuff. See them as a soul. Focus on their souls. Focus on seeing them as a soul, the perfection, the beauty, the divinity, the infinity, the purity, the essence of who they are, so that when they look into your eyes, they don't see judgment, that they should be different, that they're a screw-up, that there's something wrong with them. When that person, even though they're not ready to make the changes that you might be currently requesting, when they look into your eyes, what they see you mirroring back to them is the profound reflection of I see you. I see who you are. I see your perfection. Regardless of what you're doing with your life, regardless of how you're acting up, regardless of this addiction, regardless of your story, regardless of what you've achieved or haven't achieved, I see who you are, and who you are is whole, perfect, magnificent. You see, when that loved one that you love, that may not be open to changing right now, when they're caught up in their stuff, in their pain, in their addiction, they've simply forgotten who they are. So perhaps the greatest gift that you can give that person is actually not trying to change them to be some other way, but is showing up in complete acceptance, complete radical service and loving as a mirror in the moment of their darkness to remind them of who they really are. I see you. I see you. I see you. I see you is perhaps the greatest gift you can give another human being. My friends, wherever you are, I see you. Sending you big love. Hope you enjoyed this short video blog in terms of how to deal with people in your life that don't want to change or might be resistant. Folks, please do share this video, forward it, share it with someone in your life that you love. Also, follow me on Instagram, Facebook. Make sure you've subscribed to my email list where I'll be sending updates and some special surprises in the upcoming weeks. And on a regular basis, big love, love now.